Hi, hello, I'm Phoenix. I have risen from the ashes of my school-induced self-destruction to once again talk about my comic because the submission period for Webtoons contest is approaching at the speed of light. I've seen several creators make videos discussing plot and character designs for their entries, so I'm going to do that too, because why not? I've also gotten questions about my style and drawing process over the years, so hopefully this video will fulfill those requests too. I can't call it a tutorial in good faith though, because you will quickly discover that I have no idea what I'm doing. I'll start by giving some more background on my story and how it developed into the iteration I'm currently working with. Once again, my comic is called Swan Song. It's going to be in the most thrilling genre or most gripping category. I forget what it's called. Anyway, it's a murder mystery, loosely Swan Lake inspired and set in the 1920s. The main characters, Hazel and Sylvia, were originally part of a prequel to a fantasy trilogy I wrote. And by wrote, I mean during the pandemic I cranked out thousands of pages like a madman, only to reread them later and wonder what I was on. That story has since been reworked and will hopefully eventually be rewritten. But the prequel I wrote about Hazel and Sylvia was actually pretty good, and I realized its potential was being hindered by the fact that it was tied to this other series, so I decided to separate them. And from there, I realized the story would be better represented visually than as a novel, and I toyed with the idea of making it a comic. Except comics are a massive time commitment, so I shoved that idea into the box of things I tell myself I will do eventually. In this case, eventually meant like a month, which is the ultimate plot twist because I'm usually really, really good at procrastinating. So my school requires that seniors do this massive, multifaceted project in which you either like job shadow someone, perform an experiment, create something. It's pretty open-ended, honestly, and I chose to create this comic as part of my project. The project also requires a research element, which is how 1920s America became the setting for the story, though I had already considered shifting the genre to historical fiction since the fantasy elements weren't relevant anymore, but the project, solidified that decision. And I had already spent months researching and writing scripts when Webtoon decided to have impeccable timing and announce their contest. I cannot emphasize how insane the timing was. But regardless of the Webtoon contest, I have to finish this comic in order to graduate. So basically, I'm trying to kill one bird with two stones. The bird is me. Why did I do this to myself? Back to the actual story. I'll read out the synopsis just to give more context to the characters I'm drawing right now. So this is the synopsis. A prestigious dancer has disappeared, and her parents, the affluent Hannah and Nathaniel Rycroft, are dead. Sylvia's brother was named the killer, but Sylvia knows he's innocent and will do anything to prove it, inadvertently throwing herself into a world of crime and chaos. At the heart of it is Hazel, the missing dancer, and Sylvia's new partner in crime. Yay. Yeah, there it is. 10 years of ballet, and this is what I'm getting out of it. That's the basic plot, I guess. That's what I'll have as the synopsis when I upload it on Webtoon. But onto the character design. From left to right, the characters I'm drawing are Hazel, dancer version of Hazel, Aaron, and Sylvia. Sylvia and Hazel share the role of protagonist, but I'd say Sylvia is closer to the audience because she has a lot less to hide. Sylvia wears her heart on her sleeve, and she's a very bubbly, carefree sort of personality, and maintains impressive optimism for her current situation. Her family's not very well off, and she's a factory worker and doesn't really make enough to support the family on her own, which becomes her reality once her brother is arrested. So that's part of her motivation for wanting to prove his innocence, but also because she really cares about him, and she just cares a lot about other people in general. Hazel, on the other hand, is a lot harder to read. All we're really sure of is that they used to be known as Kyoko Rycroft, a rising star in the world of ballet who went missing after the murder of her parents. The other characters don't know Hazel's the missing dancer because I'm a big fan of dramatic irony. But yeah, there's not much more I can say because spoilers. Aaron gets roped into Sylvia and Hazel's misadventures against his will. He honestly does not get paid enough to deal with them, but he has his own backlog of shady business, so, it evens out. As far as the actual drawing I'm doing in this video, I sketched out the silhouettes of the characters to get an idea of their poses and body types. My main goal when designing characters is to make sure they're recognizable and that there's lots of variation in their appearances, because I just think it's more realistic that way. One of my favorite design quirks to give my characters is different eye shapes and details. So, for example, Sylvia's eyes are downturned with drooping eyelashes, while Hazel has sharper eyes and little spikes that are meant to imitate bird feet. And then Aaron's eyes are more angular to go with his angular face and his crooked nose. Different nose shapes are so fun to draw. That might be an unpopular opinion, and I might be biased because my nose is kind of wonky, and this is how I make myself feel better. But I used to have a major case of same face syndrome, and I think playing around with the shapes of eyes, noses, mouths is a good place to start fixing that. The clothes were probably the hardest part of the design process, because usually when creating outfits, I just choose whatever looks cool and run with it. For this project, I was more limited because I needed the clothes to reflect the time period. And honestly, I still took some creative liberties, but I tried. It's the thought that counts. Sylvia's a flapper, so obviously flapper dress, the loose jewelry. Hazel's a dancer turned bartender. I think the outfits are pretty self-explanatory, honestly. As far as choosing colors, this depended more on the characters. If you've seen my art before, you probably know I'm a sucker for complementary colors. I use them anywhere I possibly can. And Hazel's purple and gold color palette is no exception. This story does play around with the whole white swan, black swan dichotomy, like every other piece of swan-like based media ever created, because I'm basic. But in this story, it's not exactly black and white, it's a bit subtler than that, so I think gold and purple fits in that respect. And then also because, purple is often a symbol of royalty, and Hazel grew up in a very high society type space. And the rest of their color palette is relatively cool and dark because they're so closed off and secretive. And the same goes for Aaron. A lot of the characters I have in monochrome have the same deal. But Sylvia is the opposite. She's bubbly and energetic, so her colors are very warm. And it's not super visible here, but the complementary colors are present in her design as well. She has a jade pendant and green eyes that go with the red dress. Yeah, that's about all I can say about these three. I was gonna talk about some of my other characters in this video as well, but it's getting kind of long, and I fear that my iPad will explode if I try to upload anything longer than 10 minutes, so I think I'll do a second part to this video talking about more of the character designs and maybe getting more into my actual drawing process, because I realized I didn't talk about that much in this video. But thank you for watching. Please read my comic if it sounds at all interesting to you. It'll be out sometime in March. I should come up with an actual day, but sometime within the first week of when the submission period opens, it should be available to read on Webtoon. But yeah, thank you so much. Bye!